up offering, I just want to give you guys a testimony. And I'm giving God all of the glory. So last year, I had lung surgery done where they did a lobectomy. So they took out part of my lung because they found I had a cancerous tumor in my main bronchial. All of that was gone. So then earlier this year, I started having issues again. And so April, I went into the ER and they admitted me into the hospital and I had some extra fluid, so they drained the fluid. About 2 weeks later, I ended up in the hospital again, right before Mother's Day. And on Mother's Day, I had a pleural effusion, which is extra fluid around the lungs. And I had a pericardial effusion, which is extra fluid around your heart. So I thought that I was going to, when I went to the ER, they admitted me, and I thought they were going to do one procedure, but it ended up, they decided to do surgery. So they did surgery, and they tested the fluid from my lung, and it came back no malignant cells. So then they tested the fluid and the tissue that they took from my heart, and it was not favorable. But we were believing God, and we were standing on His word. So my surgeon in St. Louis that did my lung surgery, I had sent him the test results from my pericardium. And he ended up calling me, and he wanted to know who was taking care of me. And I said, well, I go to see my doctor, and they're afraid of me, so they always send me to the ER, so there's different doctors. And he said, no, we're done. He said, we're done. I'm going to take care of you. He said, you need to see an oncologist. And he said, so we can get some stuff ruled out. He said, so I'm putting you with head of oncology here in St. Louis. So 2 weeks ago, I had my 6-month checkup for my lung that he had me scheduled to also see the oncologist there. So I go in, I have my CT scan done, I go in to the oncologist. While we are in with the oncologist, he is a Christian man, and we're sitting in there and we're talking to him, and he gets a phone call. Well, it was my surgeon, and my surgeon was calling him because my surgeon was yet to see me for like 3 hours. So he was calling the oncologist to find out how I was doing. And the oncologist said, well, she says she's having a good day. And right before we went to St. Louis, I was sitting in here. I had just been to the ER. I had been to the ER the Friday before, and I was staying tachycardic, which means super high heart rate, doing nothing. I was doing nothing, and I had a super high heart rate. And so they put me on a heart monitor. They said, you can either stay here or we can do a heart monitor. I said, heart monitor. So they had me on heart monitor. I was at strict rest. 2 weeks ago, I was sitting on the front row, and 2 ladies prayed for me. That night, after we were home, that night my heart rate went down, which it had not really done. It had done post-surgeries and post-procedures, but for like 3 days. So it went down, and I was like, okay, my heart rate's down. And it kept staying down. Every time I was at rest, it was staying under 100, which had not happened in almost 2 years. So then I go to see my surgeon that Monday. My heart rate was down. My blood pressure was up, which has not been. But I was nervous, and I went in to see the surgeon, and he said, Lori, he said, they had asked Cox for my slides that Cox said had some positive cancer cells in it. And he said, we were hoping to have pathology back. We don't have it back. He said, so we have nothing that we can treat you for. I'm not seeing anything on the CT scan that makes me think you have cancer. He said, so I'm setting you up for a PET scan next Monday, which was this last Monday. So we went back up to St. Louis, and I had told God, I know we are always serving you in hopes to meet you and to get to heaven. I just don't feel like I'm done. But what whatever your will is, that's what I want. So if it's me getting to stay here and to continue to serve, or if it's me getting to go to heaven, I'll do what you've called me to do. I submit my will to yours. So, when we were going to St. Louis two weeks ago, I said, God, if this is not unto death, can I please see 3 deer in a field, not dead on the side of the road, not about to jump out on the road. I just want to see 3 deer. So I saw one, and I was just like, okay. And she was way out in the field, and a little ways down, I saw a mama and her baby out in the field, and I was like, okay, God, but just to make sure that this is you, can I see a deer that maybe isn't where I would normally see it? And so I'm seeing a deer. I ended up seeing a deer crossing a road going into a dirt road going into the other side of the woods. And I was like, okay. So then last Sunday, I knew I had to go to St. Louis on Monday for the PET scan. So last Sunday, I'm coming to church, and I was like, God, can I just, when we go tomorrow, can I just see an animal that I wouldn't typically see on the side of the road? Like, I don't want to see anything dead, but something I wouldn't typically see. Well, about that point, I was passing by the Assembly of God right there, and I remembered, for some reason in my head, a fox, because there was a group of fox that had been seen there, and I was like, a fox. Well, we left Monday morning. We had to get up and leave by 3 o'clock because I had to be there at 6:30, and I'm looking out, watching for deer because it's dark outside, and Terry said, hey, babe, did you see that fox? And I looked at him and I said, what? And he said, did you see that fox? Well, he didn't know I had prayed any of that. And I was like, no. And he said, it was a red fox on the side of the road. So I was like, okay, God. Okay. So I get the PET scan done, and we don't get to, it's done at like 8:30, I think I was done. We weren't going to get to see my surgeon until 3 o'clock. He ended up calling us in at 1:30. He knew we were there. He called us in. He comes in and he sits down and he kind of just looks at us and he said, well, and I was like, okay, God. Okay, you're writing my story, and this is just a chapter. You're writing the story, and I leave you with the penmanship. And he said, we can't find anything. He said, nothing lit up. He said, so there's no cancer. He said, I even called and spoke to your oncologist. Yes, you do have some funky stuff happening. He said, so we're just going to keep a closer eye. And he said, so I'll see you in 3 months. And I see my oncologist again next month. But I don't know why God gave me more time, but he did. And then he questioned me about my stewardship. So I was like, God, but I'm paying my tithe, and I'm going above and beyond that. He said, I'm going to give you this scripture really quick. It's 1 Corinthians 4:7. Therefore, Christians must use their gifts by his will, being good stewards or caretakers of what God has entrusted. He entrusted me with health, and what am I doing with the body that he has given me? If you drink alcohol, what happens? You have an adverse effect. You get drunk. If you spend way too much money on things you don't need, the adverse effect is you don't have the money you need for what you need it for. So if I can't honor God with what He's given me and entrusted me in, how can He extend it or make it more? So my question is, God has given you stewardship over many things. Maybe it's time, maybe it's your children, maybe it's your job, maybe it is money. He has given you stewardship over your money, but what are you doing to honor God in all of that? He has given you time. He has given you your next breath. He has given you sight. He has given you strength. He has given you mobility. And if you think that your life is bad, just think of the things that He has given you. And there's someone that's always much more worse off than you are, and they would trade places with you at any moment. So be thankful for the air in your lungs and what God has given you. And be gracious to those around you that are struggling. Be there to pick them up. Be there to give them an encouraging word. Sometimes it's not even always a word, it's a hug or a smile. So I encourage all of you guys to have a relationship with your Father. Don't just call Him when you're scared or when there's something you want and you think His hand is what gives it to you. He wants a relationship with you, and He wants to be honored in the things that He has placed in your life and what He's given you. Honor Him. Can we all stand and get ready for worship?